month of March was an exciting one in the cattle futures. Hi everybody, Coulter Brown here from the Northern Ag Network with a lot to cover in this month's livestock market report. Not just the futures, it was exciting across the board. Of course, we did see a lot of outside market noise on the talks of tariff and trade disruptions, but really this market continues to trade at or near record highs across the cattle complex. We're going to dive right into it, but first want to thank the sponsors of our report. Calving season is underway, and Nutrilix liquid supplements will provide whole herd health while reducing that calving stress on your herd. Get more out of what you already have with liquid supplement delivered to you by your trusted local dealer, and give those calves a head start before they hit the ground, all while eliminating another stressor from your plate. Also want to give a thank you to our other sponsor, the Marsh McLennan Agency. Livestock risk protection and pasture, rangeland, and forage are essential for managing risk in today's unpredictable markets. Weather fluctuations and tariffs impact U.S. livestock demand, and navigating these markets can be challenging. Call Tori Johnson at Marsh McLennan Agency at 406-209-2341 for customized strategies to help you confidently prepare for the future. Now starting out with the futures, the month of March did begin with some downward pressure. Actually, it was as low as live cattle have been all year long, but then the market found its footing. At first packers were reducing the kill, but feed yards used their leverage and the strong demand for beef that we're seeing to push cash values upwards, and the futures followed suit. The month did end rather quietly in the futures, kind of surprising given the bullish cattle on feed report and record cash values. Now, different from the live cattle, the feeders rode steadily through March. Really, they've been increasing all year long. A few blips on the radar here and there. Again, though, like the live cattle, the market did flatten out at the end of the month. Now in the feeders, we've been watching that August contract very closely. It's broken 290 multiple times already. That's impressive to see. Not sure we can say that it'll get to 300, but really this market has surpassed nearly every expectation we might have had. Now, I mentioned that cattle on feed report. We were heavily anticipating it, and it did not disappoint in March. The placements figure from February came in 18% below last year. That was the lowest placement number for any month since June of 2016. After months of elevated placements, the drop had to come eventually as cattle available are kind of drying up here. They'll be leading to fewer fed cattle available for beef production this summer when demand is at its highest. Total inventory also coming in 2% lower, so that's likely to be a continuing theme moving forward. Also, boxed beef prices had a big jump higher in March. Towards the end of the month, we saw an $11 gain in 2 days for the choice boxed beef cutout. Very impressive to see that. These high beef prices could test demand, but right now they're indicating that consumers want beef, and that bodes well for values with grilling season coming up right around the corner. Now, with the strong demand for beef, both at the retail and wholesale level, packers did kind of change their course and started increasing the kill. Actually, the last week of March, we saw them kill 27,000 more head than they did the year prior. Also should mention there's 2 new packing plants that are coming online this spring. There's Sustainable Beef in North Platte, Nebraska. Will be processing 1,500 head per day when they get up to speed. And then another plant in Missouri will be up to 2,400 head a day. Now this is kind of a tough time to start a packing plant with record low numbers, but really it's going to add more competition at the packing level and should be helpful to ranchers too. Now this combination of strong demand and the tight numbers that we're seeing, we're thinking that with 70-year lows in cattle numbers, this could be the year for the first time since 2018 that we actually start to increase cow numbers. That's kind of been my guess all year long, but what if we're wrong? What if we actually continue this cattle cycle and continue to stretch it out? It's actually been one of the longest cycles we've seen so far, and it may not be over. The reason I say that is because drought conditions are starting to creep back in here and could be threatening where this market is going to go long term. Now, as we look at these drought pictures and what we're putting together here, I've heard some predictions that April could be wetter than normal, but a lot of the long-term forecasts are saying that in the late spring and summer that we could see things get a little drier than average. A lot of producers I've talked to in Montana and Wyoming are saying they can feel just the caution from another dry year. You know, these record prices are great, no doubt about it, but some guys are hesitant about rebuilding with uncertain forage conditions. And there's, of course, other factors affecting this market. Costs may have come down slightly over the last year, but still near record high. Interest rates remain elevated, haven't come down at all in 2025. Just other factors that kind of are limiting where we can take this cow herd. And of course, I mentioned it at the very top, the trade and tariff situation that we're in right now. You know, should mention Mexico, Canada, China, they're all top 6 markets for U.S. beef. Critical that we keep those open. And if we end up losing access, that could have a big effect on the market. Thus far, we haven't really seen substantial impacts from the tariff discussions on the beef market, but that could change. I know as ranchers, we can't really complain much about this situation. Just ask the wheat producers. They're looking at prices that have come down about 5% since the start of the year, and urea costs that are up about 1/3. So the hope is that this short-term pain will be worth it with increased and more market access long-term, but right now it's just adding more uncertainty to the marketplace. You know, should mention the cash-fed cattle trade. That's another place that we saw record values here over the last year. We saw probably the biggest month-over-month increase dress cattle have ever seen, $25 higher over the last month. We're averaging $338 on the dressed beef right now, and live sales right about $312. You know, moving forward, I talk about the caution from producers. This is the best market we've ever seen. If you look at what the feeder futures are suggesting right now, they're saying that prices will move higher as we get deeper into the summer. But if you're looking right now to a year from now, they're saying prices are higher now than they will be a year later. But now we want to look at some of our local auction prices across the region, because that's where things are very impressive, especially in those feeder cattle values. We're talking prices that have just continued to increase. Of course, lower volumes of cattle that we're marketing right now, that's typical for the time of year, but still 5 and 6 weight steers that are selling north of $2,000, some very strong markets. We're really testing replacement heifers as well. A big sale in Miles City here over the past month. We saw heifers sell both by the pound and by the head, bringing mainly $2,000 to $2,200. In Lewistown, we saw the replacements $2,300 to $2,400. As we consider the weigh-up market, it continues to maintain its seasonal trend. Cows continue to be worth more money, largely $140 up over $150 in a lot of cases. Now the heiferette market very strong, easily $2,000 to $2,200 a head on those heiferettes, and the coal bulls, the big ones, still up over $4,000. So a very strong coal market that we're looking at right now. So think about the bred cows. We're kind of entering the end of that bred cow marketing time frame, of course, deep here in the calving season like we are, but that price has been very impressive, especially when you consider the fact that the lack of moisture has probably taken a bite out of demand. We've seen young bred cows largely $3,000 to $3,400, tops well above that, short-term cows $2,600 to $2,900. Of course, April does mark the end of the bull sales season as well. It certainly costs more to buy bulls this year. Generally, I'd say 10 to 20% higher, which is kind of comparable with the year-over-year gains in the 2024 calf market. Like I said, though, still some caution from producers in dry areas as they make those buying decisions, but quality genetics have proven to pay for themselves. And wrapping up with the lamb market, prices have continued strong and likely to move higher still as Easter's still in front of us, and that is a big lamb marketing time frame. Certainly we're looking at stronger prices, especially that coal ewe market. It's been surprising. Did move a little lower at the last sale in Newell, but still a strong price, and especially even some older bred ewes doing pretty well. Well, that's going to do it for this month's report. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, you can find more ag news and market information at northernag.net. Take care.